Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school. So you can feel cool. Give it to me, baby. Baby.
All right.
We'll get our shit together, not never.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the MC Variety Hour, a proud member of the No Phony Podcast Network. This is part 3 of our Women's Health and Issues series, touching on subjects of equality, health, and the history of women in general. Miles, what's our current promo from one of our amazing podcast partners on the No Phony Network?
Politics with Dummies. It is a featured podcast of the month, so here is their promo.
Do you want to listen to the best podcast of all time? Cool. So do I. You can do that or you can listen to us. I'm J Ray, and this is my bitch-ass sidekick.
Loop Dog.
You gonna say the rest? LOOP.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I mean, go ahead.
Well,
We're already here. We're already here, bitch. Go ahead and say
over,
it.
Man. You
No, just do it.
Out, right?
I don't want to fucking start over.
Loop Dog. LOOPDOGG. That's me. That's right.
And we are Politics with Dummies, a podcast on the No Phony Podcast Network at nophonynetwork.com. Look for us. We be everywhere.
Fucking sweet. I love those guys. They're awesome.
Very funny.
All right.
So, let's get into it.
Something that cropped up while we were producing this series was the recent retirement of Supreme Court Justice Kennedy. This is a truly pivotal moment for women everywhere. We are in real danger of losing our rights, everybody, to make decisions about our bodies. Roe versus Wade is in true danger of being overturned. Again, we just want to reiterate that just because abortions are outlawed doesn't mean they will go away. We have legal abortions now because women would seek out dangerous procedures to abort a child or a fetus, or attempt to self-abort at home, leading to death, infections, or damaging our lovely lady bits for future reproduction if wanted. Let's not forget that pro-life for the hardcore believers means no interference with the creation of life at all. That means no birth control, no condoms, no plan B, nothing. Anytime you want to bang, you got to go full on, let's probably make a baby. Anything less would be illegal. No, we're not being dramatic. For serious, that is what pro-life is. Any interference in the creation of life is murder, or for the religious folks, a crime against God. So, chew on that, friends.
Yeah, all right, everybody. Let's dive in on some super duper conversation about them lady bits. We like them lady bits. First of all, let's not forget that self-checks are so important. From breast self-exams to checking your lady junk for bumps, it's so important for us to know what we are looking for and to also keep up to date on our preventative health visits. Yearly pap smears are essential from the time we begin having our periods. Mammograms are important, and the usual rule of thumb is to start getting your boobs squished at the age of 40, unless you have a family history of breast cancer or some kinds of cancer. What is it? Breast cancer or colon cancer. Actually, you should get a mammogram.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I totally forgot. At least that's what my doctor told me.
I didn't know about colon cancer. I knew about breast cancer. If you have a history, you got to go earlier.
Yeah, I'm not sure why the colon and the breast go together, but it's something, I don't think they do, but she said, hey, if you have a history of colon cancer or breast cancer, you start at 35.
I'm 2 years late. I was supposed to get a mammogram last year and I didn't go.
Well, what the shit, Crawford?
I know, but it's just a clogged up duct, so I'm not super worried about it. But yeah, I need to go get my shit worked on. So here I am lecturing everybody and not even doing it myself. I'm a terrible example.
Terrible example.
Terrible.
Going to follow up with us on a podcast about what getting a mammogram was like, aren't you,
I'll get
Crawford?
some pictures. Yeah, I'm going to get some pictures, too. We'll do a photo journey.
Oh, that would be so good. It would. I'm just saying, I've got two friends. Well, one friend that's 36 and another friend who's my age, whose sister's like 38, and both of them have breast cancer already.
Oh, my.
So it is really important, ladies. Mammograms are essential. And also, heart health is also important and one of the leading causes of death or severe issues among women.
It sure is.
Another common issue and something we haven't seen a lot of activism about is strokes. We personally know at least 2 women in their 30s who have had strokes, one that made it and one that had passed away at the very young age of 31. While it is more uncommon for things like this to happen to younger women, when they experience these severe health crises, they do happen. And keeping on top of your health and listening to your body is oh so important.
Yeah,
Also,
Crawford.
yeah, Crawford, listen to your fucking body, bitch.
I'm sorry.
Also, a few quick notes. 1. Heavy menstrual bleeding happens to 10 million women, or 1 in 5. And more likely, these women have blood disorders that often never get checked. So if you are one of those very heavy menstrual bleeding women, and I'm pretty sure out of all of our listeners, 1 in 5 of you may have this issue, what you should do is talk to your doctor about getting checked for blood disorders. One of those blood disorders is one that I have. It's called factor V Leiden. It's not a big deal. Mine is heterozygous, which means that I get superficial clots, mostly on my legs, because that's where the most amount of pressure is in my body. And some of them can also be homozygous, which means that they can call DVTs. DVTs are deep vein thrombosis. Those are the clots that go straight to your heart, lungs, and brain. So ladies, if you're a heavy bleeder, talk to your doctor about getting a basic rule of thumb blood check. It can and literally save your life. Number 2, 27 million women are living with a disability, and more than 50% of those women are over the age of 65. The number, also, this is a really interesting fact that I found out. Number 3, the number of overdose deaths from opiates among women have increased substantially. Nearly 48,000 women died of prescription opiate overdose between 1999 and 2010. Women are more likely to have chronic pain, be prescribed opiate pain relievers, and use them for longer periods of time than men. So there are your quick facts. On to some more important issues facing women.
That's some great facts there, Miles. Thank you.
An important subject we want to talk about this episode as we wrap up our series is focusing on women of color and the double negative they face in society, the workplace, and even health. If anyone has not had the opportunity to read Serena Williams' experience during childbirth in the Vox article, you should. I will actually add this story to our notes, so after the podcast, you can read it yourself. Her experience in the hospitals goes to show that even famous women of color are treated so differently than non-colored women. Let's look at some statistics on how women of different colors are affected in different ways health-wise. Around 7.6% of black women have heart disease, compared to 5.8% of white women and 5.6% of Mexican American women. And to go along with heart health has a lot to do with weight. While 37.6% of black men ages 20 or over are obese, according to the latest data, that number jumps to 56.9% for black women, while only affecting 36.2% for white women. Even more shocking is the fact that black women have a 1 in 9 chance of developing breast cancer. For white women, the odds are 1 in 8, according to the American Cancer Society. But black women are more likely to die from the disease. White women's probability of dying from breast cancer is 1 in 37, while a black woman's is 1 in 31. Researchers attribute this to genetics and where black women live. They have not concluded solid research as to why they die at a higher rates, but we also know that women of color in general are not taken care of in the medical field as always fair and equal. That was a terrible sentence.
But you know what? But that's what I was thinking when it was talking about, black women dying more often and getting it treated. I have to wonder if that's just the quality of care and availability of care to them,
Absolutely. And as we stated before, taking care of your lady bits is important, and also very important for women of color, because black women are more likely to die of cervical cancer than women of other races. They are also 77% more likely to die from it than experts previously thought. Prior estimates said 5.7 black women per 100,000 would die of the disease, but the new research puts that number at 10.1 per 100,000. Wow, Wow.
That's crazy.
Right? Unlike breast cancer, cervical cancer is absolutely preventable in this day and age. In 2017, no woman should be diagnosed with cervical cancer. These are just a few highlights of the articles that we have read. All research and date presented to and all date presented today.
That's a typo. That's not your fault.
Will be posted in our show notes for anyone interested in confirming what we have stated here, as well as further reading we have summed up in a large portion of what we had read for your listening pleasure. Now, Crawford, outside of the fact that I cannot read today, why don't you go into a history lesson?
Well, you know what? I'm just about to blow your pants off with this shit. Who's ready for a history lesson?
I am.
Pause for our audience to go. We are! Now, this is the crowning jewel of our series and really ties up everything we've touched on. And we talked about equality in the workforce, the first female doctor, health issues, and wandered off into some rants here and there because, of course, we are a passionate team of lady bit lovers. I mean, we love women loving their lady bits. So, this story is about an amazing and for a really long time forgotten woman who was also an African American, Henrietta Lacks. Now you may know who this woman is already because there's an incredibly awesome movie called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks that came out in 2017. I think it was just an HBO movie though, so it might not be as out there as I thought it was. She is essentially the mother of modern medicine, all because of her amazing cells. Let's start with where it all began and just a bit of background on Henrietta. In 1951, a young mother of 5 named Henrietta Lacks visited the Johns Hopkins Hospital complaining of vaginal bleeding. Upon examination, her doctor discovered a large malignant tumor on her cervix, which goes back to what Miles was talking about with black women dying of cervical cancer. At the time, the Johns Hopkins Hospital was one of only a few hospitals to treat poor African Americans. A sample of her cancer cells retrieved during a biopsy were sent to Dr. George Gay's nearby tissue lab. For years, Dr. Gay, a prominent cancer and virus researcher, had been collecting cells from all patients who came to the Johns Hopkins Hospital with cervical cancer, but each sample quickly died in Dr. Gay's lab. What he would soon discover was that Mrs. Lack's cells were unlike any of the others that he had ever seen. Where other cells would die, Mrs. Lack's cells doubled every 20 to 24 hours. Dr. Gay observed that her cells were unique in that they reproduced at a very high rate and could be kept alive long enough to allow a more in-depth examination. Until then, cells cultured for laboratory studies survived only for a few days at most, which wasn't long enough to perform a variety of different tests on the same sample. Lax's cells were the first to be observed that could be divided multiple times without dying, which is why they became known as immortal. Basically, they never die. Gay was able to start a cell line from Lax's sample by isolating one specific, sorry everybody, it's not an ocean, cell and repeatedly dividing it, meaning that the same cell could be then used for conducting many experiments. They became known as HeLa cells, because Gay's standard method for labeling samples were to use the first 2 letters of the patient's first and last names, so H-E from Henrietta and L-A from Lacks, so HeLa. The ability to rapidly reproduce HeLa cells in a laboratory setting has led to many important breakthroughs in biomedical research. Although Mrs. Lacks ultimately passed away on October 4th, 1951, at the age of 31, her cells continue to impact the world. So how did her cells impact medical science? Well, today, these incredible cells are used to study the effects of toxins, drugs, hormones, and viruses on the growth of cancer cells without experimenting on humans. They've been used to test the effects of radiation and poisons, to study the human genome, to learn more about how viruses work, played a crucial role in the development of the polio vaccine, led to breakthroughs in the studies of herpes, leukemia, influenza, hemophilia, Parkinson's disease, certain types of genetic cancer, AIDS, cloning, and in vitro fertilization. Wow, right? From just one fucking woman, people. For just one woman!
Amazing. Let's give a round of applause.
Yeah. Yay! Henrietta! Thank you!
Woo!
Woo! So now we're we're going to get a little sciencey, and bear with me while I break it down for you and why her cells are so fucking amazing, because this is just super fucking neat, and I'm kind of nerdy, so maybe, whatever, but I'm going to break it down. Cancer cells are the source of the HeLa cell line, the first immortalized cell line and one of the most important cell lines in medical research. An immortalized cell line will reproduce indefinitely under specific conditions, and the HeLa cell line continues to be a source of invaluable medical data to the present day. For example, by 1954, Jonas Salk, it's S-A-L-K, so I might say that wrong, but I'll just spell it out, was using HeLa cells in his research to develop the polio vaccine. To test his new vaccine, the cells were mass-produced in the first ever cell production factory. I wonder what that's like to work. I work at the cell production factory. We produce cells. It's awesome. Additionally, Chester M. Southam, a leading virologist, injected HeLa cells into cancer patients, prison inmates, and healthy individuals in order to observe whether cancer could be transmitted, as well as to examine if one could become immune to cancer by developing an acquired immune response. HeLa cells were in high demand and put into mass production. They were mailed to scientists around the globe for research into cancer, AIDS, and the effects of radiation and toxic substances, gene mapping, and countless other scientific pursuits. HeLa cells were the first human cells successfully cloned in 1955 and have since been used to test human sensitivity to tape, glue, cosmetics, and many other products. Since the 1950s, scientists have grown 20 tons of her cells, and there are almost 11,000 patents involving HeLa cells. Now, that's pretty fucking awesome, right? Now, I really just tried to hit the highlights on that. I highly suggest and implore all of you to watch the movie, do some reading about just how amazing her cells are. I mean, I seriously was just blown away by it. I just thought it was so amazing. The movie, and
what was the name of the movie again?
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks.
Thank you.
It came out in 2017. I just was blown away just from one woman. I mean, she really did revolutionize modern medicine and gave us a longer life for millions and millions and millions of people, and vaccines and research. And I just, I think that's amazing. And I don't know. I really wanted to dedicate a little bit to her because we were talking about everything, and we really wanted to highlight women of color, and it just hit me one night when I was thinking about it. I was like, that's who we should talk about. So, anyways.
That's amazing. It's fucking phenomenal. It's really just such an ear listening and an eye opening, like to really hear about how just one woman has completely changed our lives. And it's very fascinating. Thank you very much, Crawford, by the way.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad to share it with people, and I hope that, even just one person does a little bit of extra reading or is hip to that knowledge about just how one woman's cells, that were collected without her consent or her knowledge, changed modern medicine and gave us all a longer lifespan, probably. We got a polio vaccine.
Woo! Yeah! So, let's talk a little about Mrs. Lacks and her family and privacy issues.
Yeah, because this is fucked up. This is the fucked up part.
Because of course she had the double negative of having the lack of a right to privacy, and she was a black woman, so she never even knew any of this before she passed away. Lacks was the unwitting source of these cells from a tumor biopsied during treatment. As was then the practice, no consent was obtained to culture her cells, nor were she or her family compensated for their extraction or use. Tissue samples from her tumors were taken without consent during treatment, and these samples were then subsequently cultured into the HeLa cell line. Even though some information about the origins of HeLa's immortalized cell lines was known to researchers after 1970, the Lacks family was not made aware of the line's existence until 1975. With knowledge of the cell line's genetic provenance becoming public, its use for medical research and for commercial purposes continues to raise concerns about privacy and patients' rights. In the early 1970s, a large portion of other cell cultures became contaminated by HeLa cells, which is also pretty frickin' astonishing. Her cells literally took over everything else where they were stored. As a result, members of Henrietta Lacks' family received solicitations for blood samples from researchers hoping to learn about the family's genetics in order to differentiate HeLa cells and other cell lines. Alarmed and confused, several family members began questioning why they were receiving so many telephone calls requesting blood samples. In 1975, the family also learned through a chance dinner party conversation that material originating in Henrietta Lacks' was continued to be used for medical research. The family had never discussed Henrietta's illness and death among themselves in the intervening years, but with the increased curiosity about their mother and her genetics, they now began to ask questions. In March 2013, researchers published the DNA sequence of the genome of a strain of HeLa cells. The Lacks family discovered this when the author, Rebecca Skloot, informed them. There were objections from the Lacks family about the genetic information that was available for public access. Jerry Lacks Y, a grandchild of Henrietta Lacks, said to New York Times, "The biggest concern was privacy. What information was actually going to be out there about our grandmother, and what information they can obtain from her sequencing that will tell them about her children and grandchildren and going down the line." That same year, another group working on a different HeLa cells lines genome under National Institutes of Health, NIH for short, funding submitted it for publication. In August 2013, an agreement was announced between the family and the NIH that gave the family some control over access to the cells' DNA sequence found in the two studies, along with a promise of acknowledgement in scientific papers. In addition, 2 family members will join the 6-member committee, which will regulate access to the sequence data.
So yeah, they stole her cells, and yeah, it was cool because it went for a good purpose, but at the same time, I can understand the family being concerned about that. I mean, it's so widespread, and they're now sequencing her genomes, and that's not cool, dude. Finally, Henrietta Lacks was buried in a unmarked grave in the family cemetery in a place called Lackstown in Halifax County, Virginia. Lackstown is the name that was given to the land in Clover, Virginia, that was originally owned by white land and slave-owning members of the Lacks family before the Civil War. Later generations gave the land to many black members of the Lacks family, who were descendants of African slaves and their white owners. The absolute fucking insult and tragedy is that Henrietta Lacks' exact burial location is actually unknown. The family believes that it is within a few feet of her mother's grave site, which is for decades was the only one in the family to have been marked with a tombstone. In 2010, Roland Patilio, a faculty member of the Morehouse School of Medicine who had worked with George Gay and knew the Lacks family, donated a headstone for Lacks. This prompted her family to raise money for a headstone for Elsie Lacks as well, which was dedicated on the same day. The headstone of Henrietta Lacks is shaped like a book and contains an epitaph written by her grandchildren that reads,
Henrietta Lacks, August 1st, 1920 to October 4, 1951. In loving memory of a phenomenal woman, wife and mother, who touched the lives of many. Here lies Henrietta Lacks, HeLa. Her immortal cells will continue to help mankind forever. Eternal love and admiration from your family.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bring y'all down after telling everybody about this amazing fucking woman, but we are really surprised considering the year. Are we really surprised considering the years that this took place? No, I'm not. But, I watched that movie on a whim one night, and I was just stunned by the information in the story. It led me to dig and read more about it, and I encourage you all to read about the HeLa cell line. I tried my best to include the most interesting information without bogging you down with too much mundane details that you might want to read up on later, because I love mundane details. So check it out, is all I'm saying. And if I had a mic, I'd drop it right now. Oh, I do, but these fuckers are expensive. So let's just say, mic drop, mother truckers! There, made my sound.
Oh my God.
All right, Miles, what do you want to hip our super awesome listeners to this week? And also, can you believe I made it through this entire podcast without slipping in a dick joke? Don't worry, there'll be plenty of them to come. That was a total dick joke. Okay, I'm sorry. That was dumb. What have you got there for us, Awesome Sauce McGee?
Well, I am so behind in life because if anybody
She was on
does not
vacation.
know,
That must have been awful. Tell everybody about the unicorn, please.
Oh my God! So, all right,
Because we saw it on Twitter too. It's our official Civil War because the Civil War started yesterday. Oh, you know what? Last year we did a podcast on July 4th, and we're just a day off, and we started it off with a quote about freedom. And I just was thinking about that. So here we are a year later, everybody. The Civil War started yesterday. And Miles she's already got the official tank that we're using because it was all over Twitter. Just accidentally came across it. So go ahead and tell everybody about this amazing fucking vehicle.
all right. So
Onward! Noble steed!
While we were, my family and I was vacationing with my friend and her family as well. So we were out, gallivanting around on a golf cart. And yes, that is correct. I did get pulled over on a golf cart because leave it up to Miles and her husband to be the only two people probably in North Myrtle Beach to ever get pulled over by the police on a golf cart.
Oh, Lord.
But beyond that,
I love it.
We went to one of those great little bargain shops, and there happened to be a massive flotation device in the shape of a unicorn, with the great rainbow colors. This thing is super huge, and we had a blast on it. I mean, my husband blew the entire thing up by himself because I wasn't going to pay no $40 for a fucking air pump. Come on now. And so he blew this, and this thing is huge, guys. You can fit 3 to 4 small children on it. That's how big this is. But Andy blew up this entire thing all by himself, and then he went out to the ocean to try to ride it. And it was a very tideful, it was was it the long tide kind of evening? So the tide was, you don't have the short waves, you have the really big long ones and they swoop up real far. And so watching him get on this unicorn as a man and go out there and ride that son of a bitch was...
Onward, double steed! Sorry, that's my favorite cry. I'm sorry.
No, but it was great because there was 15 people who were filming my husband attempting to ride this unicorn out into the ocean, and it was hilarious. So then, as we have finished up vacation and are coming home, Alex Jones goes on his great fucking kick about the Second Civil War. And if you guys have not gone on Twitter and read hashtag Second Civil War or hashtag Second Civil War letters, fucking phenomenal. And by the way, Drew Morgan from the Well Read podcast has been following up with this. Keeps going and making small videos of him going to a Second Civil War. It's so good. It's so comic gold. But anyways, there was a massive unicorn a part of the Second Civil War, and it was great to come home to see that our unicorn was not just used by us, but other people as well loved a unicorn. And that is what's going to get us through the resistance, folks. The resistance of the Second Civil War will be a giant unicorn in the ocean.
That's how we're going to ride into battle. Blown up unicorns. I'm fucking excited.
Bitches. We are going to podcast on a fucking unicorn. Boom.
This is Malin Crawford coming to you live from the battlefield. We got avocados. Artisanal beard wax. I tell you what,
Where is the dirty hops? I need the dirty hops to make me some craft beer. Please.
Bam! I just got hit in the face by a MAGA sign. Oh, I'm down. Somebody. No, I actually
see, there you go, folks. See, we lightened you up. We made you happy again.
Brought you back up. That's what we do.
Right back up.
Bring you low and bring you back up. But I spent hours, I'm not joking, over the last 2 days reading these Civil War letters home because they just fucking crack me up.
We will link those as well into our show notes. It's going to be phenomenal.
Oh, some of our favorites. We'll do a highlights,
So good. And I will get the one with the picture of the unicorn. It's so great. And I will also attach a picture of my husband on the unicorn in the middle of the ocean. It was fantastic. Not the middle of the ocean. It was the middle of the beach line. Let's be real honest.
It sounds way better to say the middle of the ocean, though. Andy was out in the middle of the ocean on a unicorn, people. he was out there leading the charge and he didn't even know it. Oh, now you left that detail out, and you know how I feel about basketball shorts. Somebody came in the other day wearing them, and I was like, "You're just gonna need to sit down. I can't even
do it."
Pouring this drink.
All right, folks, we will wrap this up. Look,
yeah.
I've always got podcast recommendations today, not so much, but I will tell you that if our scheduling can actually make shit work, we are going to be doing a meetup with Dumb All Over, and I fucking love that podcast. Like, Crawford knows. Yes. I have been talking to her about Dumb All Over for like a year.
I love Dumb All Over too.
Seriously, I think since we started podcasting, I found Dumb All Over, and I'm like, what is this podcast? I just love it. So,
yep, that was one of the first ones you ever started talking about, and I think
the second one, it was. But Dumb All Over, really, I really enjoy those guys. They're really just. They're phenomenal. They get some amazing people. I mean, maybe that's what we should start doing, Croft. I think we need to start interviewing
I'm so
people.
Honored.
Like, I think that should be like our season 3.
I think
like,
so too.
It's been a year. Let's get our shit together.
Yes. Let's start bringing people on. That way people like to listen. for those people.
So my podcast recommendation is, if you haven't heard
terrible.
Dumb All Over ever, go listen to them. Listen to us. Tell your fucking friends about us.
You will
Tell
crack
your
the
mother
fuck up.
about us. Okay, probably not. Tell your mother.
Tell your mother to expect us
but
for dinner.
That's what I've got, man. That's all
food.
I've got to bring to the table today. That and a bunch of fucking editing, because I screwed some shit up today.
I did too. We kind of, and I read this like 8 times and still was like, but you know, we're busy ladies, and a lot of times we literally sit down and have just like a short period of time to just pow this bitch out. So that's what we did today. I was straight out of work. I was straight in from errands, and errands like ERRANDS. I know I got a weird accent, so not errands like some.
First of all, Crawford, I got to come in with this because while on vacation. With my friend's family, she had her brother there who had met a nice little lady friend. But I'm not kidding you, born and raised in Tennessee, but was living in New Jersey and then moved back down to South Carolina. Her accent was wicked awesome. Dude, it was. I loved it. It was like a southern twang, meet New Jersey, but a little bit of Carolina like Lacks, you know? It was nuts. Anyways, go on.
No, I totally understand that. I grew up for a part in Ohio, and I lived in Georgia, and then I moved over to New York, and then back to Ohio, and I've lived all over Ohio, which accent isn't quite the same depending on where you're at in Ohio. So depending on who I am talking to or around, I can get real southern, y'all. I can get very, very southern in my voice, you know. So I just have to be real, and people make fun of me because I don't pronounce things correctly. Like the other day, people were making fun of me because I was saying the proper word is alumni. I want to say alumni. I never get it right. You know, I'm constantly having, and it's just because I grew up fucked up like that. Where
mine is recognition, because I want to say recognition, and I don't know why. But I know it's recognition, but I like recognition. It sounds great. Like, you better recognition.
There was even one that like cracked you up because I kept saying it wrong, and you were just dying. Like last year, there was one. You're like, I don't remember what it was. It was I don't remember. It was a word that started with P though. But you were just dying. Like, you can never get that right. I'm like, leave me alone. Ugly cry. But anyways, all right, everybody. That's all we got for this week. We're gonna do some heavy editing and get this out to you. I hope that you had a wonderful. Well, I got a cat fight behind me again. I have a very mean cat, Queen Lily, and she likes to just bat the shit out of everybody. That just even the wind sometimes she meows at. But anyways, I hope you had a safe and happy July 4th. I hope you got drunk. Hope you did some fireworks. Enjoyed some time with your family and friends. What are we going to talk about in upcoming episodes? We have no idea. We'll probably put a poll out. Who knows? But thanks for tuning in and listening to us and supporting us. We appreciate it. Have a great week. See you next time. Bye!